Folks, welcome to another episode of Legacy Men's Podcast here at Mark Air in Soldotna, Alaska. My name is Gary Trevor, and I am thrilled today to welcome Brian Voxfort. Hopefully we got the enunciation pretty close. Welcome, Brian. We are so glad you could join us, and just thank you for what you've brought to Mark Air over all these years. But let's get started. So basically, talk to us about your life, your family, grandchildren, children.
Yeah.
And what do you think is an anomaly just associated to you that everyone says when they think of Brian, they go, Brian's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, wife, 4 adult children now, 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
2 of them live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, so that's way too far away. I think probably what's associated with me now is been on staff longer than anyone else. This month starts year 29.
Wow. Thank you for your service to Mark Air.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And your capacity for Mark Air is chief pilot, I gather.
It is right now. I started as head of maintenance 28 years ago.
Wow.
Then pilot mechanic, then scheduler, pilot mechanic, and then the last few years has been scheduler, chief pilot, pilot mechanic. So been able to fill in some roles here.
Wow, that's wonderful. So let's get to this kind of a twofold question. I'd love to know your experience, how you came to know the Lord as Savior, and with that as well, tell us about the journey for you and the wife 29 years ago that brought you to Mark Air.
Okay, long journey. I'll say it as fast as I can.
It's no fast, it's okay.
I grew up in a Christian home in southern Minnesota, and my uncle was Sunday school teacher. I think it was third grade, and he gave a clear presentation of the gospel on Easter Sunday morning.
Wow.
And I went home that night and accepted the Lord by my bed all by myself.
What was your age?
8.
8, okay.
And I got up the next morning and thought the world would look different, and it didn't. So I didn't bother to tell my parents for years. I was sent to Christian grade school, so I had a good background in Christian education. And the church I grew up in, we had to learn the Heidelberg Catechism, so I knew that very well. Became an electrician after high school, then went on to college, helped restart our college's mission program, Summer with a Purpose. And the first year sent people out. Second year, the chaplain said, well, you're going. Ended up going to Jackson County Ministries in the hills of Kentucky,
Okay.
one of the poorest counties in Kentucky. And there I met my wife-to-be, didn't know it at that time. It had been a Christian high school at one time, and she had graduated from there. She grew up as an MK, 7 years over in Africa, in the Congo, and then ministry in the Appalachians. Her dad was a church planter in the Baptists. And so we married 2 years later and worked at a small phone company as customer service, a little bit of everything for 4.5 years. And then the position for administrator came open at the mission we met at. And so applied to that. We knew we both wanted to go into missions. Excuse me a minute. You may need to get rid of this. Anyway, when I met her, she was hoping to become a missionary nurse. And so we both knew we were interested in missions. And after we married, we had our first child and then moved to this ministry 4.5 years. And about 3.5 years into that, just really felt the Lord calling us into more cross-cultural ministry. And I came home and told her that over lunch. She said, well, if God's calling us, where are we going? I said, I don't know. She said, what are we going to do? I don't know. So we were eating lunch on the front porch of our house on the campus. And she said, what do you dream of doing? And I looked at her and I said, well, Dutchmen don't dream. I said, my culture, you're born, you work, and you die. I've never heard a dream from my family.
Wow.
And she said, well, what do you like doing? Well, I was speaking for the ministry all across the upper Midwest.
Oh, wow.
And I'd drive to Lexington, Kentucky, get on an airplane, go fly, and speak for the ministry. And I said, well, I love flying. She said, well, have you ever thought of being a missionary pilot? And it's just like the old Ford ads, click, click,
Yep.
better idea. And so we prayed about it, applied only to one place, Moody Aviation. That was our fleece, and got in. So a year later from that conversation, we were starting at Moody Aviation. And that then became the process of figuring out where we were going. Great relationship with the different ministries. And they have a mission fest every year there. And one of the Mark pilots came and presented Mark. And looked interesting, but I was hoping for overseas. And the Lord redirected. After graduating from Moody, worked as a mechanic in Savannah, Georgia for 3 years, had our final child. Some factors that I don't learn languages easily came to bear on the decision.
Right.
And so we pulled out the English-speaking ministries that we knew of, and Mark needed a pilot mechanic. And about 1 year from when we started raising support, we moved in here, and that was 29 years ago. The Lord raised our support. They were short on pilots, short on mechanics at that point, and I mean, it just accelerated. We started in June, and by Christmas, we were fully funded. And I never asked for money. We've only ever asked for prayer. And people realized, well, if he's going to a place that needs funding, we'll fund him. We've only asked for prayer partners.
How did your parents on both sides respond to you?
Her mother was still alive and was very excited. And she actually died in a car accident while my wife was working weekends as a nurse to earn money for us to go to Moody Aviation. She had our 2 children in the back seat. And they lived through the car accident. She died a couple of weeks later from the complications. My mother's first response, and they were very proud of it, but my mother's first response was, that means the grandkids will be a half a world away. And my mother gets sick flying, so that was traumatic for her. And I understand that. She's been up here twice, and she'll never fly up again. It's physically hard on her. So they were very supportive, but knew that there would be this big, long separation away from them.
Yeah, that's tough. So let's talk about, which a number of you folks, the pilots, mechanics have talked about, Brian. That is the personal sacrifice, seasons of isolation, and then struggles that you've dealt with over the years as a mechanic here as well and pilot.
You know, in some senses, if you go overseas and you're really, really isolated, you hesitate to say personal sacrifice. I mean, if you're over in Afghanistan flying mission work, if you're in Indonesia and malaria, I had a friend from my class almost die of dengue fever. You know, the sacrifices are not as severe here. It's more of you are distanced from your family. You have, now that we're oldest staff, we have children with kids. So I've got a family now. But when we got here, it was us and our little children. And so you didn't have family. And that was hard for me, having grown up with approximately 30 first cousins, all within 50 miles of each other.
Wow.
So every Sunday we were together at Grandpa and Grandma's, you know, on both sides. And for my wife, having grown up as an MK, she never knew that because she grew up overseas and then in Appalachia, and her parents were from Michigan and from Minnesota. So they never had that experience of having relatives near them.
Yeah.
So for her, what was normal but quite often lonely, for me was a way different experience.
Yeah.
But we've got each other, and so that was enough.
Wow. So there obviously, as you began your 29 years, there were periods of doubts, and you had to really dig deep sometime for spiritual sustenance, because I gather it was God and you and the wife.
Yes.
Kind of sustaining each other. So how did that go for the first couple of years? Because basically what I'm hoping, Brian, through your testimony, that the folks listening to us and with the help of Trevor's expertise, putting it on YouTube, that people will say, wow, that's a what does it take for me to get there? How do I sustain myself? So finding measures to encourage folks to say, well, could we try this? Could this be something
Yes.
possible, you know?
I've learned to tell stories because the indigenous people teach their children through stories.
Okay.
And that's been pretty exciting to learn that, but it gets long-winded, so hopefully you
It's
can.
okay. We love stories.
One of the things I would say is make sure you stay in your daily devotions. When you let that slip, you will not survive. I've personally let it slip and almost not survived. So that's hard lesson to learn.
Okay.
When we were accepted to Moody Aviation, we knew that all of our cash reserves would be spent on training with no guarantee of graduation,
Right.
no guarantee of mission work. It's going off to school at 33 years old. I was older.
Well, you were.
Yeah, so no guarantees. And that summer, remember, we're working at a mission in Kentucky. That summer, 3 different churches came from different parts of the Midwest, and I had full-time staff offers for associate pastor, music pastor, and youth pastor.
Oh, wow.
And it was here, on one hand, God's asking us, we think, go and spend all your money and see if I take care of you. And on the other hand, oh, you can serve me and I'll take care of you. So I kind of felt like that was a real test of him. Like, we prayed about it, it was confirmed, and now are we going back on that? Sort of like, I'm not Abraham, but Abraham called out of the Ur of Chaldees.
Correct.
So you've got to know God's call. Would I have been sinning had I gone there? No, but would I have been robbed of the blessing of coming here? Yeah. If I'd gone to those other ministries, would we have been able to be in the kingdom work impacting people? Yes.
Yes.
But that wasn't his call. His call was to go and spend the money and let's see if you even make it through Moody.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, be certain it's a call. It's not something you want to do. It's something God is saying, this is a certainty. Because there's times that when you know you're going to spend all your money and it's all gone, you wonder, how am I going to get through this?
Yeah.
We knew we were going to Moody, and then there was some unexpected costs that we didn't have covered for that first year. And so we were visiting some friends at a church that supported the ministry we were working at. And so then I'd say, make sure you remember the stones out of the River Jordan that they picked up when the Jordan went dry, and they put on the bank before they went and took care of Jericho. Each tribe picked up a stone and put it on the bank because the river dried up when the priest's feet went in. We were visiting friends in Chicago and watching a movie with them. I was going to speak for the ministry yet about something that they had done at the ministry, and
Sure.
and they said, now? And his wife said, well, yeah, do it. So our friend paused the video and went and brought me a check. And the check was within $1 of the unexpected toolbox and tools I had to buy starting Moody. And we didn't tell anybody. We told no one of our expenses. And that toolbox was in this hangar for about 15 years before it went to somebody else, and I bought a bigger one. But that was my Jordan stones. That was the mark that God provided. And I really needed that because partway through Moody, all our money was gone. Her mother had passed away.
Yeah.
So now what do? I remember my wife telling me, I've robbed the piggy bank so I can go buy a travel toothpaste to brush the children's teeth today.
Wow.
That's the only money we had left, and I'm sitting in school having paid for the semester. We had no more money. So trying to figure out how we're going to get through. So she goes to the store and buys a child's travel toothpaste at Big Lots.
Yep.
Out of date, all of that stuff.
Yep. We have in Phoenix.
And I get a phone call later on that day. No cell phones then, so she has to call the switchboard number. And she said, there's a check in the mailbox.
It's okay.
For $300, a church, unsolicited, started supporting us through school. That was the church that I lay pastored before we went to the ministry in Kentucky as we were first married.
Wow.
Their pastor had died, and I was working at a phone company, but they needed a preacher pastor. I had a religion major. I'd studied Greek, but I'd taken a different path because I realized God's calling me to a different path. And we didn't take any salary from them. It was a very, very small church. The offerings went to paying for heat for the building and electric for the building.
Wow.
And again, we told no one. We'd run out of our resources, and that check came in the mail without ever telling anybody. Well, that was 1994. That church has never stopped sending that money every month.
God's faithfulness. God's faithfulness. So I think the word for our audience today is that no matter the situation, when you're walking as He has called you to, He will provide.
Yes.
He will provide without you crying, screaming, knocking on doors. He sees, He provides. So as we've heard, and now we hear personal testimony, where He leads, He guides and provides. But if you try and go out of His will, and you try and go through a door that He's closed, He's not going to provide. But in your case, you and your wife were called to the mission, and He provided the toolbox, and He provided the $300.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Just as we close, Brian, give us your current situation. I understand you're retiring. Are you retiring because it's a want-to and you feel like it's time to move on to the next stage of your life after nearly 30 years?
Yeah, aviation is not an old man sport.
Yes, sir.
I'm an associate pastor at Kenai Bible. This is, again, an unpaid position, but it takes a good amount of my time, and I enjoy that. I enjoy teaching the Bible. That's something that's in me now. Just really love opening the Scripture and teaching it. Trying to find a good time of transition out of MARC. They're looking for a chief pilot. I no longer have a medical. Glaucoma has taken the peripheral vision of my right eye. So I can fly along, but I can't exercise privileges as a pilot. So there's some limitations because of that. It's a season of life that's about done here. Trying to work out an exit plan, turning my responsibilities over to the younger generation, encouraging them, saying, okay, hey, here's stories. Here's how God does it. One of the stories, I'll tell you another story. When God closes a door, and as a pilot, you have to understand that God closes the weather door. We were flying out west for a youth conference, and the pastor that was going to speak at the youth conference was on the last flight of the day to get to the youth conference. We'd been shuttling kids to this village. And so it's late in the afternoon, early evening, the sun's still up because it's Alaska in the summertime, and just this storm came in off the ocean. It's right on the ocean. Couldn't see the hills, couldn't see the runway, nothing. So we turned around, we went up over the hills and came down the valley. Couldn't see the hill, couldn't see the runway. Turned around, went back to the regional village we'd picked them up at. They have restaurants there. We had supper with them. We'll get you there first thing in the morning when the weather clears. We get a phone call in the morning from his wife. We're in Anchorage. He had a heart attack last night. Had we been in the village, he wouldn't be alive.
Wow.
The aircraft that I was flying, that my co-pilot and myself were flying, had enough instrumentation on it that we could have gotten there 0 visibility because it had that synthetic vision. It's illegal and dangerous. And we looked at each other and went, no, God closed it. Let's take him back to where we picked him up.
Yeah.
So
Wow. And I think it comes down to, as we've been talking amongst ourselves, it's so critical to know in your heart and then listen to the still voice that says, I've given you all this wisdom, and the bottom line is we need to adhere to it. So I want to thank you this afternoon for taking your time. Godspeed. God bless
thank
to
you. It's good to be
and
with
we
you.
appreciate this enormously. Folks, thank you so much. If there's any interest at all, like Brian has said, for becoming or interning or trying for a chief pilot, please do so and contact Mark here. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank
It's been
you.
an honor and a privilege, brother.
Yeah, God bless you. Thank you very much.